I used to love driving at night. There's a certain calmness to the world after midnight. Less noise, fewer people, just you and the open road. It feels like the world is sleeping, and for a few hours, you have it all to yourself. That kind of silence gets inside you. It becomes peaceful, meditative. I used to cherish that silence. But silence can hide things. Silence can lie. It was late summer. I was driving from Santa Fe to San Diego, an overnight trip to avoid the punishing heat of the day. I left around 9 p.m. with a full playlist and a thermos of coffee. By 1:30 a.m., I was deep in northern Arizona. Sparse traffic, not a soul in sight. That's when the gaslight came on. I spotted an old metal sign just barely illuminated by my headlights. Gas, food, 24 hours. I took the exit. The ramp curved down into darkness, and for a moment I considered turning back. But I needed fuel. The tank was nearly empty, and I didn't want to gamble on the next station. The gas station came into view. It looked like something from a forgotten era: two battered pumps, a flickering canopy light, and a convenience store with a buzzing neon open sign hanging crookedly in the window. No other cars. No other people. The whole place felt like it had been left behind by time. I pulled up to the pump, got out, and began fueling. The only sounds were the clicking of the pump, the quiet wind sweeping over the desert, and the occasional pop of cooling metal from my engine. Then I heard it. Tires on gravel. I turned my head slowly. A white cargo van rolled into the lot. No windows, no company markings, and most disturbingly, no license plates. I froze. It parked away from the pumps, deep in the shadows where the overhead light didn't reach. The driver didn't get out. The engine stayed on. There were no headlights, just the low hum of the idling engine. Something primal kicked in inside me. That van wasn't normal. That van wasn't safe. I quickly finished fueling, eyes flicking between the pump and the van. The driver still hadn't moved. Was he watching me? Waiting? Then the van crept forward. Slowly. Deliberately. It moved toward my car like it was stalking prey. Not racing, not swerving. Just inching closer, closing the distance between us. I didn't hesitate. I dropped the nozzle, jumped into my car, and slammed the door shut. My hands shook as I started the engine. The van stopped, just short of blocking me in. I didn't wait to see what came next. I slammed the gas pedal, tearing out of the lot and back onto the highway. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear the radio, but I wasn't safe yet. 10 minutes later, in my rearview mirror, I saw headlights. A single pair. White. Close. I changed lanes. So did they. I slowed down. They did too. I sped up. So did they. I turned onto a rural side road, a pitch-black detour that wound into the desert. Still with me. I pulled back onto the highway. The lights returned behind me, like a nightmare looping. Eventually, I spotted a large truck stop, glowing like a beacon in the dark. I swerved into the lot and parked under the brightest halogen floodlight I could find. Big rigs lined the perimeter. A few drivers milled about. I waited, but the van never appeared. It didn't pass by. It didn't pull in. It vanished. I stayed parked there for over an hour, engine off, hands clenched on the wheel. At one point, I called my brother just to hear someone's voice. I didn't tell him what happened. I couldn't put it into words. I just needed to hear a human being on the other end of the line. I don't drive at night anymore, and I never stop at a station unless it's packed with people. The guy in the hoodie. I work the late shift at a small medical clinic in Houston. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. I usually get out around midnight, sometimes later. Most nights I go straight home, heat up leftovers, and crash. But on this particular night, I was running on fumes, literally and figuratively. It was almost 1 a.m. when I pulled into a 24-hour gas station a few blocks from my apartment. I needed gas and some sort of snack to keep me awake. The station lot was empty. No customers, no other vehicles, just quiet fluorescent light and the soft whir of a distant ice machine. And a man. He stood leaning against the ice machine outside the store. Black hoodie pulled up over his head, hands in his pockets. He wasn't smoking. He wasn't on his phone. He was just standing. Still. Too still. As I got out and began pumping gas, I kept him in my peripheral vision. He never looked at me. Never shifted. Never moved. His head was down, like he was asleep on his feet. But he was awake. I could feel it. I could feel his attention aimed directly at me. I glanced inside. The cashier, a tired looking man in his 50s, barely acknowledged me. I nodded toward the guy outside. Everything okay with him? The cashier shrugged. I went inside to grab a Gatorade and a protein bar, trying to act casual, but the hair on the back of my neck was standing on end. When I walked back out, the guy was no longer leaning on the ice machine. He was standing at my car, right at the driver's side door. You got a minute? He asked, voice low and syrupy. I tried to sidestep him. No, man, I'm just trying to get home. You sure? I was going to ask if you needed a ride. That stopped me cold. I looked him dead in the eyes. I have a car. He smiled, not a nice smile, not an apologetic smile, a knowing smile, like I just stepped into something I wouldn't get out of. I didn't wait. I got in, slammed the door, and locked it. He stood there for another second, then leaned forward and tapped on the glass with a single knuckle. Then he backed away into the shadows. I peeled out and didn't stop until I was parked in my building's garage. I filed a report the next day. The police said they'd checked the cameras. Never heard back. Now I park at well-lit stations. I keep pepper spray in my console, and I always scan the shadows before I step out. That man didn't want to rob me. He wanted me, and I don't think I was his first stop. I was never the type who believed in gut feelings. I'm a systems analyst from Sacramento. Everything in my life runs on logic, patterns, data. I build predictive models for a living. I analyze risk. I map probabilities. That's what makes what happened on that cold winter night so difficult to reconcile, because nothing about it made logical sense. But it happened. And no matter how many times I run it through my brain, I can't find an algorithm that explains it away. That day, I'd been in San Francisco visiting a friend I hadn't seen in years. He and I used to work together in the Bay, and after he moved to Reno, we kind of drifted. But his dad had passed, and I wanted to show up, support him, be a friend, you know? By the time I left the city, it was after 10 p.m. I was exhausted emotionally and physically. I debated grabbing a motel somewhere along I-80, but I convinced myself I could power through. Coffee, gas, snacks, the usual road trip cocktail. Just 3 more hours and I'd be in Reno. Around midnight, near Auburn, my fuel gauge was flirting with empty. I saw one of those green reflective highway signs, gas, 1 mile. I took the exit. The gas station sat just off a quiet stretch of road, nestled at the edge of dense pine woods. No other cars, one dimly lit island of pumps. The building looked older than it had any right to be, peeling paint, cracked windows, and a faded mural of the Sierras across one side. The kind of place you'd expect to see in a black and white photograph, not a living night. But I needed gas, so I pulled in. As I stepped out, the cold hit me like a punch. The air was crisp, dry, sharp with the smell of pine needles and distant chimney smoke. I began fueling and walked toward the store, hoping for caffeine and maybe a bathroom. The radio inside was playing old country, something warbly and mournful. The inside of the store was stuck in time. Gummy candy that looked fossilized. Magazines from 2018. The only clerk was passed out in a chair behind the counter, mouth open, gently snoring. I used the bathroom and grabbed a bottled coffee drink and some jerky, dropped a 5 on the counter without waking him, and stepped back out into the cold. And that's when I saw it. My passenger door was wide open. At first I thought maybe I'd left it that way. I do that sometimes. My mind drifts when I'm tired. But then I saw the bag, a grimy, torn-up duffel bag sitting on the seat. That wasn't mine. My first instinct wasn't fear, it was confusion. My brain tried to logic it. Maybe I picked someone else's bag up at the gas station. Maybe it was mine from some forgotten trip. But none of those theories made sense. It had mud on it. The zipper was half broken. It looked like it had been dragged through hell. Then I noticed movement, behind the dumpsters, to the right of the store. A shadow, tall, thin, darting low. I backed away from my car slowly. "Hey!" I shouted. "What the hell are you doing?" The figure didn't respond, just vanished around the side of the building. I ran inside and shook the clerk awake. He grumbled, confused, but followed me out. We checked behind the dumpster. Nothing. No footprints. No person. The duffel bag was still there. I didn't open it. I refused to open it. I dumped it on the ground and kicked it under the bench outside the store. Then I locked my car and drove like a demon was behind me. I didn't stop until I was parked in front of my hotel in Reno, shaking, sweating, scanning every dark corner of the lot. For days, I replayed it. Who had put that bag there? What was inside? And why didn't they take anything from me? Wallet, laptop, GPS? Why leave something behind instead? It started to dawn on me. Maybe they weren't trying to steal. Maybe they were trying to hide. Or worse, maybe they were trying to get in. To this day, I check every door lock twice. I never leave my car running when I step away, and I never stop at empty gas stations, no matter how low the tank is, because someone wanted to ride with me that night. And I don't think they cared where we were going. The man with the gas can. I've worked long-haul trucking routes for the better part of 15 years. I've driven through every kind of weather, across every kind of terrain, from the Arizona deserts to the icy highways of Montana. And if you'd asked me a few years ago, I'd have told you I'd seen it all, heard every roadside ghost story, dodged every scam, slept in a dozen creepy lots. But this was different. It was March, and I was heading east through Nebraska, just past Grand Island, middle of nowhere. My dispatcher back in Omaha had me on a weird overnight drop, livestock feed, nothing urgent, but he wanted me ahead of schedule for once, said there was a storm coming. So I hit the road around 9 p.m., planning to refuel halfway and push into Iowa by morning. By 3:15 a.m., I was running low on diesel and starting to feel that creeping exhaustion you only get after midnight, the kind that messes with your vision, street signs warping, shadows stretching a little too long. That's when I saw the sign. 24-hour fuel, convenience, next exit. I veered off the interstate, tires humming over cracked asphalt, and pulled into one of those old two-pump stations surrounded by cornfields and empty land. The kind of place that might have been busy 40 years ago, but now looked like it barely kept the lights on. And speaking of lights, there weren't many. One flickering bulb over each pump, a broken canopy overhead. The store looked closed, though a yellow open sign buzzed behind foggy glass. No other vehicles. No sounds but the wind hissing through the grass and the low creak of the station's rusted sign swinging on its hinges. I pulled up, killed the engine, and stepped out into the cold. That's when I saw him. He was walking down the road toward me from the direction of the cornfields. Slow, methodical, a red plastic gas can in one hand, the kind you'd pick up at a hardware store, but old and beat to hell. He wore a denim jacket over a black hoodie, torn jeans. His hair was greasy and long, jaw scruffed with patchy stubble. But what struck me wasn't how he looked. It was how he moved. No hurry, no limp, just an eerie steadiness, like he knew exactly where he was going and exactly when he'd get there. He stopped 10 feet from me. "You mind helping me out?" he asked, holding the gas can up slightly. I didn't answer right away, because there was something wrong about him. He didn't sound tired, didn't sound panicked or frustrated, just flat, monotone, like he was reading off a script he'd rehearsed 100 times. I glanced toward the store. Dark. Still no movement. "I don't work here," I said. "Store looks closed." He nodded, very slowly. "Yeah, it's closed." An uncomfortable silence stretched between us. Then he said, "You're already paying, right? Just let me use your card, one fill-up." It wasn't a question, it was an expectation. I took a step back. "Sorry, man, can't do that." He didn't move, didn't blink. "You're the only one here." That sentence hit me wrong. Not threatening exactly, but too direct, too final. I stared at him. He stared back. We stood like that for what felt like a full minute. Me clutching the fuel nozzle, him gripping that red can like it held something more dangerous than gasoline. I didn't say anything else. Just stopped the pump early, screwed the cap back on, and walked around to the driver's side. He didn't step aside. He waited until I was climbing in to take one small step closer. I slammed the door and locked it in the same motion. He stood there as I started the truck. Didn't wave, didn't back away, just stood in my headlights, the red can catching the light like it was glowing. His face didn't change, no anger, no sadness, just nothing. As I pulled away, I looked in the mirror. He was still there, still watching. He didn't try to follow, didn't shout. He just stayed in that same spot, like he was used to people leaving him behind. For miles, I kept glancing back, half expecting to see headlights in the distance or that same figure walking along the shoulder, somehow keeping pace. I stopped again at a truck stop 2 hours later just to get under bright lights and see other people. But the unease never really left. Here's the thing. I've seen people break down before. I've helped jump cars in snowstorms, patched leaking tires, even gave a guy a ride to the next town once. But this guy, he wasn't out of gas. He was looking for someone to stop, someone to say yes. And something in me tells me if I'd let him near my truck, I wouldn't be here telling this story. The woman in the parking lot. My dad used to say death doesn't change people, it just brings out the parts they tried to hide. I never understood that until I lost him. He passed from a heart attack, sudden and brutal, on a Monday afternoon. We buried him 3 days later under a bruised Georgia sky, all wilted roses and Southern gospel. I didn't cry at the funeral. I didn't even speak. Grief doesn't always come loud. It sometimes settles in like fog, thin and silent, filling the cracks in you until you forget what it felt like to be whole. After the service, I couldn't handle staying in the house. Too many ghosts, too many casseroles from people I barely knew. So I left. Told my mom I'd head home to Macon that night, even though it was past midnight, and I still had 4 hours to drive. I don't remember much of the drive, only that the road was ink black, the kind of night where the headlights feel like they barely cut the dark. No other cars for miles. Just me and the low hum of AM radio to keep me tethered to something. Around 1:15 a.m., my gas light came on. I passed a flickering sign for a 24-hour station just outside of a town called Woodbine, if you can call it a town. I took the exit, winding down a narrow, crumbling ramp that led into a patch of trees and nothing else. The gas station looked abandoned. One street lamp stood like a sentinel, buzzing with dying insects. One ancient-looking pump under a rusted metal canopy. A squat building with yellowed windows and a bent neon sign that just read pen instead of open. I pulled in, heart racing in that way it does when you feel exposed. Vulnerable. That's when I saw her. She stood under the single street lamp, alone, barefoot, wearing a yellow sundress like it was the middle of July instead of late October. Her arms were crossed, her skin pale in the sickly light. She wasn't moving, just watching. I hesitated before getting out. I even considered driving off, but the needle was way below E and I knew I wouldn't make it to the next town. As I stepped out of the car, she turned slightly toward me. No smile, no wave, just a question. Do you have a phone I can use? Her voice was soft, oddly flat, like a recording played back at half speed. I hesitated but handed it over anyway, watching her closely. She didn't ask what kind of phone it was, didn't look at the screen, just lifted it to her ear. That's when she said it. He's here, in front of me. He doesn't know. My stomach dropped. What? I asked. She didn't respond. Just stood there, eyes on the horizon, phone still to her ear, her lips curling into a smile that looked surgically constructed. Too wide, too white, too precise, like someone practicing how to look human. Then she turned to me and said, "You should go inside. He's almost done." Her words were a whisper now, like she was letting me in on something, like I was the last to know. Without another word, she walked away, right into the woods. No flashlight, no shoes. Just vanished between the trees as though she were smoke. I stood there frozen. Every instinct in my body screamed to get back in the car and leave, but I couldn't move. Not until I got my phone back. I called out to her. Nothing. I stepped to the edge of the woods, phone flashlight scanning. No sign of her. No footprints, no sounds. Just the still, oppressive quiet of southern backwoods. Eventually, I turned back toward the store. It was lit now, faintly, as if someone had flipped on a light inside while I'd been distracted. A man stood behind the counter, older, with a white beard and a heavy sheriff's jacket, though the badge looked like it hadn't seen service in decades. He watched me come in like he already knew what I was going to ask. "Did you see a woman outside?" I asked. He shook his head once. "Ain't been anyone around here but you." I tried to explain what she looked like, what she said, but he just stared at me with those pale, watery eyes. He didn't argue, didn't react, just said, "Phone battery's low. You might want to plug it in." I checked. He was right. It had dropped nearly 30% in just a couple of minutes. But there was no call in the recent log. No number dialed, no missed call, no audio file, nothing. I left without buying anything. Drove straight through to Macon with every window rolled up and every mirror checked twice. I didn't stop, not for red lights, not for cops, not for anything. For weeks afterward, I dreamed of her, standing under that light, barefoot, whispering secrets I couldn't quite hear. And sometimes when my phone glitches or the battery drains too fast, I get that cold feeling in my spine again, like I handed it off to something not entirely real. I don't know who she was, but I don't think she was talking to me. I think she was watching someone else. And I think whoever he was, he's not done yet. I don't talk about that night. I can't, really. Not in any way that makes sense to people who haven't lived through something unspeakable. Most just offer sympathy and sideways glances, the kind reserved for trauma survivors and liars. But I remember everything. It happened 2 years ago. My best friend Nate and I had set out on a cross-country trip, something spontaneous, dumb, and exactly what we both needed. He'd just gotten out of a 6-year relationship, one of those doomed affairs where love turns to survival. I was fresh off quitting a job I hated, tired of cubicles and fake smiles. We wanted to see something real, something big. We started in Portland with no itinerary except a vague promise to make it to Chicago in 10 days. We took the long way, down through Idaho, into Utah, across Colorado, detoured for national parks, weird diners, and roadside museums. It was the kind of trip that felt timeless. Windows down, beer in the cooler, music loud, and the open sky never ending. By the time we crossed into Wyoming, the weather had turned. Gray clouds hung low and dragging a premature dusk over everything. Our GPS had lost signal somewhere near the Wind River Range. Cell bars disappeared soon after. That's when we noticed the fuel gauge. "We'll hit a town soon," Nate said, leaning forward, squinting at the horizon like he could will one into existence. I didn't say anything, just kept driving. The highway was desolate, miles of cracked blacktop stretching through open plains and rolling hills, not a single structure in sight. The last car we'd seen had passed us 20 minutes earlier going the opposite way. Then, like a beacon, we spotted a faded road sign. Exit 212, fuel, food, 24 HR service, 1 mile. Relief flooded us. I took the exit without hesitation, tires crunching onto uneven gravel. The road twisted through sparse pine, the trees thinning until we saw a clearing up ahead, and nestled within it, a squat, weathered service station. It looked like something out of time. The kind of place that once thrived along old highways before they were bypassed and forgotten. 2 rusted gas pumps stood like monuments to neglect beneath a sagging metal awning. A flickering fluorescent sign buzzed over the door. Auburn Hills Service. "What the hell is this place?" Nate muttered. He had a nervous edge in his voice. I didn't blame him. The station looked deserted, yet somehow watched. No visible cameras. No other vehicles, no lights inside except a dull, flickering blue from the drink cooler visible through the window. "I'll pump," I said. "You grab something inside." He nodded and headed toward the door. I stepped out into the cold. The wind had picked up, whistling across the broken pavement. I slid my card into the pump. Declined. I tried again. Error. See attendant. I sighed and glanced toward the station. Nate had gone inside, but I couldn't see him through the grime-smeared windows. I knocked on the glass of the door, pushed it open. Inside, the air was thick with mildew and rot. Shelves stood mostly empty. What remained, dusty chips, expired candy, ancient canned goods, looked untouched for years. A radio on the counter sputtered static. Fluorescent lights flickered above, giving the place a sickly glow. "Nate?" I called. No answer. I moved past the empty counter and toward the back of the store, where a narrow hallway led to 2 unmarked doors. That's when I heard it, a dull, dragging sound like something metallic scraping across concrete. "Nate?" I called again, louder. Nothing. I pushed open the first door. A bathroom. Cracked mirror. Rusty sink. No one inside. The second door creaked open on its own. A dark stairwell descended into the ground. My pulse spiked. That's when I heard Nate scream. It wasn't long, just a short, choked sound, cut off too soon. I bolted back outside, shouting his name, scanning the lot, looking for anything movement, shadows, signs of a struggle, and then I saw it. A figure, tall, wearing black, face hidden under a hood, emerging from the woods behind the station. In one hand, he held what looked like a tire iron. It scraped along the pavement with every step. He didn't run. He didn't shout. He just advanced, steady, patient. I backed toward the truck, heart hammering. That's when Nate came stumbling out from behind the building. His face was pale. Blood soaked his shirt. One of his arms dangled uselessly, clearly broken. He wasn't running, just lurching, staggering toward me like every movement took all he had. I reached the truck, yanked open the driver door. "Nate!" I screamed. He was 10 feet away. Then something moved behind him. Another figure, smaller, faster, wearing a white porcelain mask, blank and smooth, with two black eyes and nothing else. They rushed him from behind and tackled him into the gravel. I heard the impact. I heard the wet sound that came next. I screamed, slammed the door. Gorbel started the engine, but I didn't move. I froze, watching tears streaming down my face as the masked figure knelt over my best friend. Nate looked at me, not in fear, but in betrayal. Then he went still. The taller figure was nearly at the truck now. I hit the gas and peeled out, fishtailing onto the gravel road and back to the highway. I didn't stop driving until dawn broke. I found a ranger station and babbled through tears, trying to explain. They sent state troopers, search teams, helicopters. They found the station, but no blood, no Nate, no sign the place had been open in years. Records showed Auburn Hills Service shut down in 1997 after a triple homicide. The owner, his wife, and their teenage son had been found murdered in the basement. The killers were never caught. Rumors persisted of a cult. Some claimed the family was involved in something dark. Others said the killers never left. I don't know what I believe anymore. All I know is I left my best friend to die. And sometimes when I drive at night and my gas light comes on, I swear I hear that metallic scrape behind me, closer than it should be. Thank you for making it this far, for pulling up to these pumps with us again and again, for turning off your engine, stepping out into the quiet dark, and daring to look around. These stories may seem unbelievable. Some may sound exaggerated, the stuff of urban legends whispered over a dying campfire or shared on message boards late at night. But those who know. The quiet hum of a gas station after midnight, the feeling that something or someone is watching from just beyond the glow of the canopy lights. That irrational but inescapable urge to check the back seat or to finish fueling just a little faster than necessary. The truth is, the scariest thing about these encounters isn't the monsters hiding in the dark. It's the people. The man with no license plate, the woman who knew your name, the smile that didn't reach the eyes, the moment you thought you were alone and realized you weren't. We hope these stories stay with you, not just as entertainment, but as reminders to trust your gut, to look twice, to always keep your tank full. And above all, if you must stop late at night, make sure it's not the last stop you ever make. Safe travels out there. And if you ever find yourself alone at a gas station after midnight, you'll know better than to assume you are alone.